Okay, this is the first in a series of videos that's going to show you how to wrap your own custom rods at home. I want to go over some of the components and things that you're going to need to get started uh, before you even wrap your first rod. You're going to need a rod wrapping machine. I'll talk more about that later. But you're going to need some just supplies you'll need across the board for all your rods. So to start off, you're going to need some masking tape, razor blades, probably a small pair of scissors, which I don't currently have right here. And you're gonna need epoxy to put handles on. I have some on order. I don't currently have it here. You're gonna need some flex coat and some color preserver. I ordered some. It's on back order right now. You're also gonna want some other things, smaller things like an alcohol torch to get the bubbles out of your flex coat. Pretty simple thing. Some handy tools are tip glue, obviously, to keep the tip on your rod. This is called the burnishing tool, which is used to smooth out your wraps. And this is a China marker, which is a wax pencil that you can make marks in your blank with that you wipe off afterwards, like for guide placement and things like that. To apply the flex coat or to make epoxy, you're going to need some mixing cups. These are they come in bulk from. I got these on Get Bit Outdoors. They have increments on there that show cc's or milliliters or something, and allows you to mix 2-part epoxy or flex coat evenly. You're going to want some stir sticks. Again, I got these all in bulk from the website, really cheap. Some popsicle sticks to apply epoxy to rod blanks to hold reel seats and handles on so you don't get on your fingers. And some cheap brushes to apply your flex coat with. These are all real simple things. You can probably pick up everything you need for 50 or 60 bucks. Good thread. I picked up a little speedball pen that allows you to dip it into this ink so you can write on your rod blank what blank, or before you wrap it, what blank it is, the name, whatever you want to put on there. Real easy way to do it. You should pick up a thing of the pen cleaner as well. I got this on Amazon altogether for like 20 bucks. Some guys print labels for their rods. I'm not that into it. I just want to know what blank it is. So that's basically it. You probably have $100 worth of tools and supplies here, and that'll get you started and probably be enough to do dozens of rods. Okay, I'm going to be showing you how to use the Batson website here to select a blank, select components, and get all the things you need to get together for wrapping a rod. This is the main page, batsonenterprises.com. It has links to all their sub-sites, which you may or may not need depending on what you're doing here, but it's a good place to start because it can get you going. For rod blanks, I'd click on the rain shadow link here. I already have the page open. So for this example, I'm going to be building a jig stick, and so I'm going to go to the casting and spinning rod blanks. I already know that the blank I want is the Jig Boat series, which would be the RCJB. Click on that, and that's going to take me to the list of rods in that category. The one I'm building is the RCJB 106H. It's an 8'10" graphite composite rod, rated from 30 to 60 pound, 3 to 8 ounce lures. It has the button tip sizes and the weight and all that stuff. So once you know what blank you want, you're going to want to go to the blueprints up here and select that, and that will give you a PDF file, which you'll say click to download the PDF. I already have done that, and I have gone through all of them and gotten to the page. You want to make sure you look right where the rod you chose is. And then what this gives you here, it gives you the rod blank, the butt cap size, the handle, suggested handle type, which is cork tape on this one with a shrink tube overwrap. It tells you what winding check you want, what size tip top, the type of guide. It describes everything. And then what it does is it tells you the guides from size and position. Starting with the tip top would be a size 8 guide. It would be 4 inches from the tip. Second guide would be 8 inches, 12 inches, 16 3/4, 22 1/4, 28 1/2, 35 1/2, and on down. What this does is it allows you to get the right size guides and know how to place them on the rod blank so they'll be properly set up. This makes everything really easy when it comes to choosing things. When I first started doing this, you kind of had to guess, and you had to bend the rod and put guides in different spots to see how it worked. They've taken all that work out of it for you. Gave you the recommendation of the size of the guide, the placement. Now you can change these guides to different styles of guides, slightly bigger guides, slightly smaller guides, depending on your preference. But that's a real easy way of getting the stuff you need. What I did here was, for this rod that I'm building, I just wrote down all these things, and I headed over to Island Fishing Tackle and picked up the parts I needed. Nearby store, you can order them online, things like that. So that's about that. You can, every blank on the website has a blueprint on how to build it here. So the next thing we're going to need to do is have some sort of rod wrapper. And you can find those on the Alps website. I pulled up the Alps website already. They have several different styles of rod wrappers, and I'm gonna start with the simplest one and the cheapest way if you're getting into this, just to build a few rods or to repair some rods you already have. You can pick up a hand wrapper, which is basically a starboard stand. They'll hold your rod on there. There's an additional piece here to stretch it out to balance longer rods and things like that. And you can use this to hand wrap your rods. You can pick the basic unit up for about $50, and each additional stand I think is around $15. So for about $80, you can have a serviceable rod wrapper that will take care of most of your rod wrapping needs. You're also going to need something to dry the rod once you put the flex coat on it, and that's where the Alps drying machine with rod stand comes in. This is a slow rotisserie style motor that will keep the rod turning while your flex coat dries on there, and you can pick that up for about $75. So for under $150, you can get a rod wrapper, hand wrapping station, and a drying motor. What I did was went with the all-in-one system, and this Alps wrapper and drying machine is pretty much the top of the line as far as wrapping machines go. It's going to run you about $400, but if you wrap more than 3 or 4 rods, the money you save on paying someone labor to wrap them is going to more than make up for the cost of the machine. I'll show you some more stuff on my actual machine, but the best part about this new machine here is that it has a self-centering chuck that you can just hand tighten the rod in there. Some of the older machines you have to use thumb screws to get it. It would take 10 minutes sometimes to get the rod centered in the thing right, and it would pop out and a bunch of other problems. This doesn't have that issue anymore. And what's nice is it's an all-in-one, so it has a belt that drives the motor when turning rod, and then you just simply switch that belt over to the rotisserie motor, and it'll use it to turn the rod while it's drying on while your flex coat's drying. So it's really that simple to get your components and your tools by using the site here. It really takes out a lot of the guesswork. And you can see here in this rod bent picture, one of the concerns when building a rod is make sure the line doesn't have any low spots on the rod or anything like that. They've already done all that work for you. So you can just download the blueprints for it, print them out, take them into your tackle shop, and they'll set you up with the guides and handles and everything else you need. Okay, so the blank that I showed you in the video of how to use the website is this RCJB 106H. I'm building it for my buddy Jimmy Decker. I got the guides and the tip for the rod. I got the winding check that was listed. I got the butt cap that was listed. I didn't have any cork tape, so I bought a whole roll of it. This will last for several rods. And I got some shrink tube to put over the handle. When choosing thread for the rod, I went with an A size, which is a no color preserver thread, which means you don't need to put color preserver on it to keep it from changing color. If you don't get a color preserver or a thread with it built in, if you don't use it, the thread, especially lighter colors, can get darker or just change hue altogether once you put the flex coat on due to a chemical reaction. I'm going to be using some metallic on here, and in red and silver, so I'm probably gonna put color preserver over it anyway, just to play it safe. It doesn't hurt anything, even if it's no color preserver thread. You don't need a ton of thread on the rod. This is a big 800 meter spool, and these smaller ones are 100 meter. So for main colors like black, I do a lot of black, I'd get a bigger spool. And for specialty colors, you can get away with the small ones. This is Fuji thread. This is what they had in stock. You can use whatever you want. I know Alps makes them, and a few other companies make them. They're all pretty similar, and they can work together. I recommend using the size A thread. They also make a D thread, which is a lot thicker, but it tends to gap more and doesn't look as good once you're wrapping. So I've got all my supplies here. I've got my rod wrapper set up. What's important is to have a good light source above your rod when you're wrapping. I don't know if I blew up the camera right there, but I have 2 lights installed over my wrapper so I can see the thread, look for gaps and things like that. So when I see you again, I'll be talking about how to get started.